What's up, weirdos? It's still, we can still talk about that. Isn't it weird how, no matter how, like, technological we can get with the internet and everything, there's still gonna be, like, that pixelated dinosaur when you Google, when your web page doesn't open. It's still, like, they still leave the nostalgia in there. It's weird. It's not weird, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah. What's up, world? Welcome to the Weirdness. My name is Brian Target, here with my best friend co-host
Rob Middle.
So what were you talking about? You're making lunch?
What?
You were making dinner or something?
Oh yeah. Well, what were you talking about? The thing I burned?
You were about to tell me a story. Tell me a story. Yeah.
Well, I was talking about how every time for some reason when Brian's around a lot, I'll burn anything I'll pretty much burn anything.
Yeah. Rob will leave. Like he'll put a whole pizza in the oven. We'll get over to it 30 minutes late and realize that it's not even on a rack, like it's just on the rack, like the oven rack.
Well, yeah, or it's like 100 degrees too high or something. Like I thought it said that.
Rob's the only guy who can burn some on the outside and it's still ice cold in the middle.
Well, yeah, well, that's what happened last night because I had some pizza rolls put in there and I followed the directions. I did the temperature it said and everything, but. I thought it would maybe play out, and I guess as a small oven compared to a large oven, because the settings were for a large oven.
Yeah.
So I got them out, and they looked fine, but I turned them over. The whole other side was just bright. Everything was burnt, completely burnt. It was like night and day. Like you turned it around, it didn't look like the same pizza roll. And you probably ate
every single one of them.
I tried. Well, I only ate.
Motherfucker got them for free, and he still can't throw it.
No, I had to throw some away. It was too bad. But there were some towards the ends that didn't get heated as much, so I kind of ate those. No, I just got to do something different next time if I'm going to have them again.
Yeah. So you watched that Bob Lazar video I sent you?
Yeah.
That 25 years later.
Yeah, I thought it seems like a big topic these days, where there's like large conspiracy theories about either extraterrestrials or some kind of other intelligence. Yeah. I mean, like a whole Ancient Alien show is kind of based on that. But,
people love that shit.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. It's really interesting to kind of just look at it in a different perspective. Kind of keep leave an open mind, but some of it's a little bit far fetched. I mean, it is a TV show.
But a
lot of it's really really interesting. Just the questions.
I love the hieroglyphics. Like there's like the spaceships and like the things they found, and it's like, how do they know that?
Yeah.
That didn't come about until like the 50s. Like style look, and they have it. On the walls and stuff.
Yeah, and I think there was evidence that I think I guess the government there had a plaster over it before to kind of cover it up, I guess, because I think Egypt was going through a different, I guess, political.
That's kind interesting. No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I think that was. I may have heard that on the show, or I think I may have looked it up again or something. They said that you can't go around the area supposedly because I think. They don't. There's a few things, I guess, for some reason that may be one of the things they don't want you to see. But the plaster fell off, and like you said, there was like these kind of like shapes that kind of represented like a flying craft or some kind of like higher technology. But I don't know. I think it was the plaster fell off, and that's something insane. along those lines that kind of like revealed that.
Yeah. There's weird, like, sometimes weird. I really believe Bob Lazar sometimes when he was talking about, like, the 25 years later, how he just, like, almost wishes he didn't tell it. Like, he's not using that story for profit or fame at all.
Yeah.
And he still sticks to, like, the same thing,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And how he knew, like, when those, like, tests were going to be in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, he brought people there, said it was going to happen this time, and every single time, like, 3 nights in a row it happened.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
Like, it just makes you really think, like...
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's that's the first time I ever saw the video you showed me. Like, I'm kind of new to Bob Lazar because there's a few other, I think, people that are kind of had similar not similar stories, but this is the first time I've ever heard it. I think I've heard him before, but it's the first time I really paid attention to his story, and it was interesting.
Yeah.
It just seemed like, you of course, like, it's you truly can't, you don't know, because I mean there's a lot of evidence, and there's like, I don't know, but
I really thought the interesting theory that they had was that the government like did all this research on who he was and what kind of guy he was. Like he had a spotty record and things like that, spotty financial, blah, that crap they said and stuff like that. Like, and kind of analyzed it and thought that they knew, like, but this guy was smart enough to put in the role to study it, but they knew that he was going to, like, leak it. Like, they kind of already knew that.
Yeah, oh, yeah, like, this was, like, a part of, like...
It was just part of the plan.
It's part of, like, a gradual kind of integration, I guess, of this kind of...
So, like, who knows, like, if there's another higher power or whatever, aliens or whatever that they know about...
Yeah.
They know, like, it'd be easier to tell people to just, like, ease it in, so, like, you ease it constantly in, and then people are like, oh, yeah, we kind of already knew that.
Yeah,
like, when they finally release the news.
Less of a crash of just, wow, that's, that's a huge game changer.
I can see that. Like, I could see that as, like, a thing that could happen.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. I mean, in a certain aspect, it does make sense. It really does, because, well, like, I think, as we were talking about this, I think Bob Lazar had this thing about, he was working with certain anti-gravity devices.
That's the craziest part. Like, he knows, like element 115, I think it was called.
Yeah,
or something
it was an element that they used to kind of, I think, process.
They were talking about, like, you could throw a golf, like, they were, like, trying to touch it, and it was, like, a magnet.
Yeah, like, there supposedly, well, for people who don't know, supposedly Bob Lazar was involved in some kind of project where they had a device that could supposedly...
In Area 50, the side part of Area 51 was S4 or something like that, S1 or, like, Groom Lake.
Yeah, there's some kind of like ongoing project, I guess, with where someone can like really harness gravity, or have kind of like have an object have its own gravitational field in such a way where they were throwing objects at it, and it was reacting as if it was bouncing, like as you had two magnets repelling each other. It was reacting the same thing.
Freezing the flame.
Yeah, that's like crazy. Supposedly there was you could like point this gravity device in certain objects, and it supposedly you can kind of manipulate space and time and how they intertwine.
Yeah.
And supposedly he made this flame like froze, and the way he explained it was just like he basically froze time for that candle lit.
Yeah.
And that's why it appeared to be frozen, which is like that's great, and like in some ways it really does make sense, like a lot of these experiments because it kind of lines up with a lot of other theories. I think there's I think it's called the Hutchison effect. I don't know. There's a few other things.
We were talking about how like all of a sudden after that time period, like you saw like 10, 15 years later, a huge like increase of technology, like a big boom. From some random place,
that's another. Bob Lazar was involved in, I think,
he's back engineering everything.
Yeah, back engineering. I don't know how they got. Supposedly, there's craft that they have or certain technologies we've acquired and we just back engineered it.
Yeah, I don't know how he never.
Like supposedly that's what he said. That's what he was involved with, and he was involved with the gravity thing as well.
Imagine having the power to harness and bend time.
Yeah, and that was another thing we were, I think, getting into later, as we were in the car. We were really, after we watched it, we were like, when you think about it, if someone had that in their home, or if someone had the ability to make something like that, average Joe, and manipulate space and time and harness gravity, and he learns perhaps new things. Perhaps he harnesses more than just that. Perhaps there's some kind of it involves some kind of other force that probably is pretty unstable. If you don't know what you're doing, you probably can make a lot of destruction or do something to you or others that you have no idea what have no experience with or know anything about.
Completely destroy the world, probably.
Is. You can probably it's like the create. You're basically manipulating anything in that sense.
I can see why they would want to keep that secret.
Yeah, like I can.
I would expect them to keep that secret, like for that possibility. Like, in one way, you argue, like, yes, like we should, like, but should everybody know everything? Like, there needs to be a little bit of secrecy.
There needs to be an integration. That thing where it's like
just gradualness,
because
it's almost like
it's within knowledge of that in that aspect.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, because it's like trying to, I don't know, like dive head first into like a shallow pool of water and hoping it's going to be 6 feet or something like that.
Yeah, that's
or no, you need more than 6 feet. I don't know, you'd be like 10 feet, but but I'm just saying, but it's just like it's that seems like it's a whole different science altogether, like at that point. And if someone has the ability to do that, then that like you said, it could be disastrous, but it could be perhaps very good in certain ways if you know how to use it the right way.
Tell me, you told me a little bit about this earlier or the other day. But I don't think I really grasped 100% what you were trying to tell me. Tell me your concepts that you've heard or think about the asteroid belt thing.
Well, yeah, I was
Explain
talking about
that to me, because I forget exactly how it all went.
I think we were talking about hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have no knowledge in any sort of like Egyptology or whatever, any kind of science of that aspect or history.
We're just talking about it. Yeah.
I'm just kind of pulling out like visual aspects of what I kind of see in the situation, perhaps. And I could be wrong. I hopefully would be corrected by someone who knew a little bit more about this. But I think it was just one of those. It was just one of those. I don't know if it was on another podcast or on TV. I saw it, but they were talking about one of the hieroglyphs shows a solar system where there's an obvious sun. I think Egyptians were doing something in the background, but it was displaying the planets, our solar system.
Yeah.
And I think there was an odd amount of number of planets that supposedly are in this hieroglyphs, where you can actually see it if you pull it up. I think like Egyptian.
Yeah, you showed it. You showed me. It was crazy.
Planets, but the numbers don't add up. I'm not sure if there's one more or one less, but perhaps. Then I was kind of really thinking about time, because I know there's evidence, like scientific, or there's evidence that there was there's radiation in places where there shouldn't be, and there's like a certain, I think, I'm not sure if they use, I'm not sure if this is right, like isotopes or a certain
right. Like in random places where
they could calculate what produced this kind of radiation. It was definitely like, I'm not sure if artificial is the right word either, but it was definitely not a natural thing.
Yeah.
And where there's also evidence in writings and everything about a big war in the past and all this kind of calamity,
right?
Somewhat of a mass destruction, like cities that are like like the theory of Atlantis, the cities that are now underwater. This big calamity, and for some, I look back in time where perhaps this was once drawn on the stone.
Yeah.
I think perhaps there was also perhaps it looked different in the sky. I look at like again, I don't know a whole lot about the history of astronomy or what it looked like in the past or what evidence we have of this, but I was kind of going on the theory of perhaps what if the asteroid belt was once a planet between Mars and Jupiter, and perhaps it just plays along the lines of like all these sacred numbers of three habitable planets, because I know they were saying how
the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. You were talking about
but
that.
Continue. What were you saying?
No, I was putting you on that thought.
Oh,
what was that thought you had? Because you had to finish the 3 planets.
It was things. Like there's like these, because there's evidence that I think there was once running water on Mars. It was perhaps if the atmosphere was a little bit different, it could have been somewhat habitable. And perhaps back then there was these 3 habitable planets before this calamity happened. Yeah, and that thus produced the asteroid belt is the pieces remnants, the pieces that cooled down and just are floating amongst its own gravity, its own.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I never looked at. You just showed me the picture.
Yeah, and you
of
look
the
at
planets
it,
in the asteroid belt, and it just when you think about it in that way, it just makes a lot of sense in a weird way. There's just
and who
there's
knows
something there.
If that was once a large thing, or wherever these asteroids came from, it kind of makes sense that it was something that just got blown up, or something that was drastically torn apart. I mean, I don't know anything about
the theory that asteroids, like the asteroids that came hit Mars and kept coming to Earth and had all of the key ingredients for life on it. That's an insane topic.
Yeah. Well, I know it's weird now because I think the computers. I have to occasionally get up because computers start to sleep, and I don't want that to happen. Okay. What was I saying?
I was talking about the habitable planet, coming from Mars.
Yeah, I mean, but there's also evidence to show that I think the asteroid, Jupiter. No, I'm thinking about Jupiter. Protects us from a lot of moving asteroids right.
Well, they were talking about like an asteroid hit Mars way back in time, and then hit Earth, and that brought some of the key ingredients of life. That's why they say like Mars has one. That was probably maybe a habitable planet. Who knows if it had beings on it or not? It just had like the right ingredients attached to that asteroid, then hit Earth, and then it was there. That's crazy. That's really crazy to think about. I was listening to Bill Nye talk about it. He's like, so then there's a possibility we're descendants of Martians. Yeah. It sounds so science fiction, but it sounds like anymore, it sounds like it could be real. Who knows?
It's so weird, and in like some ways, like when you think of like aliens, like if aliens are a real thing,
it's hard to not think about the movies. You know? It's hard. It's probably way. Imagine things that are on planets that are like trillions of light years away. What about if there's just planets of these crazy creatures? That could be if there's life all around the universe, it's probably presents itself in so many different ways. It's uncomprehendable. Yeah, what is there
amongst the theory of infinite possibilities and all that? Then in a way that has to happen. It's part of the equation. It's part of.
You know what I love that you were talking about how the Egyptians found out the power to manipulate time and was waiting for the Earth to come back.
Oh yeah, it was a joke. I was just they knew shit was coming. So what? We can manipulate time and I'm chewing a Starburst right now. I'm sorry. What if people who know how to manipulate time and are oh, shit's gonna happen right now. We gotta get out of here for a few million years. We'll come back. Shit's cool. This pyramid will still be there. We built it well.
Built it well. Yeah.
So right now, they're they open the portal, time and space and whatnot. Just left for left for a few million years. And in their time, if they knew how to do that, it would just be probably
if they figured out
how to do that.
Well, because if you figure out how to bend space and time, then does age really matter? Would you get super old or would you stay the same?
That is true. Oh well, I mean,
I guess you would
theory
stay
of
the
relativity. Somewhat, I think it would just be if you knew how to kind of go through time like that, seconds.
You know what always blows my mind? This theory that I had that I told you about how we kind of know we're poisoned by the fact that we know everything that's going to happen to us. The threats from the outside and the threats that we have to wait off. What about if there's just something way out in the universe that's just about to happen? And any second, this could all just be
just done.
Start over.
Something that
we would never see it coming. Yeah. It could be right now, then boom. I don't like to scare people because it's a scary thing to think about, but it kind of just opens your eyes to how kind of not to think, it just opens your eyes to think a little bit more about what we really are here. You know, sometimes.
Yeah. Or perhaps stuff like that is happening constantly.
Yeah, it just hasn't hit us yet. I mean, I'm a big believer, the fifth dimension stuff, and I love the string theory of things are layered or we're in the bubbles and stuff, and we're just this gigantic. I mean, what's your thoughts? Have you ever thought about any of that stuff?
When it comes to beyond the third dimension,
what is holding the universe?
Yeah, what is the fabric?
They say it's infinite, but yet that infinity needs to be in something.
Yeah, that infinity has to have limitations in order for it to exist per se. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say.
That movie Interstellar tripped me out.
Like, I mean, I feel like I've gradually begun to understand a little bit of what space and time. We sound like
we're sitting in a haunted house with these damn chairs.
Yeah. So what was I saying? I think I have a better little. If you asked me like 5 years ago, if what I thought about like quantum physics and all that and space and time, I'd probably give you a different answer. But I feel like I have a little bit more knowledge on how space is in like an abstract sense, or time is in somewhat of an abstract sense, since there's only one time or one space that I've really experienced. But I feel like in that aspect, then that has to exist elsewhere as well, and for it to be held together. So therefore, there must be some kind of higher, or some kind of higher dimension, or some kind of.
I love the topic of like that our key ingredients, like inside of our body, is from exploded supernovas.
Yeah.
Like that theory alone is just not a theory; it's a fact.
Yeah.
Like our same elements that we're made out of come from an exploded star.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so. Like, I love when Neil deGrasse Tyson says, "You are star stuff."
Yeah.
Because we are made out of exploded stars. It's insane. And like just that whole like vision of like looking into like someone's eye and then imagining a galaxy. It's kind of just that infinite.
Yeah, like
circle.
I do like that. It's pronounced tesseract?
Yeah,
or it's like it's very fractal. Like everything is just somewhat fractal upon these kind of parallel ways or parallel.
I love the
frequencies of.
Because that's the theory of like you're always brushing your teeth, you're always being born, you're always dying.
Yeah.
You're just kind of crossing in and out of these.
These kind of steps or.
Yeah, like from Interstellar, like the books on a bookshelf, like kind of thing, like that theory of just like you're just looking in on yourself, always in the room, always in this car, drive. There's just like that's happening all the time.
And like
and happen deja vu maybe is when you cross into that.
Yeah,
you cross over, you like conscious skips over it.
Yeah, because it's really tricky to like really talk about consciousness, because it's like how's that quantified, like how's that measurable? But when you think about it, we're kind of experiencing this in this third dimension.
Yeah,
I feel like there must be more for us to kind of transcend through, to where to like kind of operate what's going on in like a sense of.
I was reading somewhere online about the fifth dimension and how they're predicting. And I don't know how much I believe this, but they're predicting like so far into the future, like maybe like a few decades, that we're on the path of getting into that fourth dimension, like that next dimension of things, like as a consciousness thing.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like the fourth and fifth dimension. Like they say, like I guess through the information and all the like all like everything coming together, all the information coming together, and people talking that it's going to be figured out. And like we're on that path of like getting higher consciousness and stuff like that. I don't know how true that is. It was just some kind of crazy theory I was reading. It was like very interesting though.
I mean, we do like in a way make up our own reality.
Yeah.
We do every day. Like we're doing
just the way you looked at things.
Like everywhere we're kind of like doing things that we're really affecting our time here.
Yeah.
That's like if we wish to work, we will go out and work, thus changing our reality to do something that we have imagined to do.
Yeah.
So
and you perceive your feelings.
Yeah.
I'm a true believer like realizing your feelings and being able, or emotions and being able to control them.
Yeah.
It doesn't work all the time, but it's kind of crazy like if you really try to.
It's hard, like harnessing certain,
like you just let your brain, like it's like letting a balloon go every morning. You wake up and it's like the balloon is like full of air, and then you just let it go and it just bounces around the room. It stops, or unless you grab a hold of it.
Yeah,
and change it and control it.
Control is the key. When you think about it, it really is.
Yeah.
Perception. Because as you control your mind to think certain ways, like even nervousness, eventually you'll learn to get over that into whatever you're doing, thus making you better at able to focus on what that task is.
Yeah.
So that like there's in a way positive, or I wouldn't even say positive, or in a way, I guess, in motion actions kind of like, I don't even know where I was kind of going with that, but
I don't know.
I don't know if you wanted to.
I was thinking on the way over here that I did want to say on the podcast today. Just to tell everybody, like, don't ever listen to anybody if they tell you can't do something.
Yeah, always take it into consideration. Never just turn a blind ear, though.
Yeah,
that's important. Is to understand.
Well, I'm talking about more like kids or like people who want to do like creative things or do something out of the box.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, don't always take the risk. Like, if people are telling you not to do it, you're like most likely on a good path. I feel.
Yeah, because
there's always gonna be people that tell you not to do something, but you can't listen to those people.
Yeah, it's important sometimes to know where. Sometimes
take
problems
into consideration a reality.
But don't let that rule your decision. Ever.
Yeah.
Let that kind of just give you a certain eye on a certain eye or a certain feel and something. But
use those haters as gas, man.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't had a few haters, man. Fill up the tank. And just keep going.
Yeah, and it's but it all goes along with that negative and positive. There's in order to move forward, and it just seems like positivity will always somewhat move forward in innovative ways, in ways in kind of wanting to do things and wanting to learn things. Like, that is the key.
I feel like that's becoming more and more of a thing now.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like before the age of the internet, I mean, there's a lot of terrible shit that goes on the internet, but that aside, like, it was easier to control people before all these people started to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so easy to pump something fucking negative through Fox News at someone's face.
Yeah.
And that's all they got.
Yeah.
And now with the internet, you can just literally go out and look at anything.
Yeah.
And you could take 15, 20 different sources and kind of come up with what your opinion is.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of changing a lot of people, especially in our generation. I feel like it's kind of shaping them in us in different ways, as opposed to, like, you had 3 news areas, and it's just like, I hate that.
Yeah.
And now it's like
there's just
so much. It gives this, like, it's a great tool to have. And, like, just hope that I mean, we got to fight for that. I'd hope that nobody ever tries to take that away.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Well,
that's how you control this type of generation. That's how you control a generation, man. If you take away technology, take away their information,
take away the genuine information, like
they'd break down the walls. We would break down the walls, like the Berlin Wall, like, just like that would be the revolution, man.
Always, in a way, always never listen. But not in a literal sense.
Yeah.
Because
stay woke.
Then you would
go
never,
back to that.
You would never learn.
That's what staying woke is most about.
Yeah.
Is just not taking one person's word, like, not taking one side of things.
Yeah.
It's never black. Never black and white.
Yeah. There's never one way.
And there's so many people that are controlled because they're set in their ways that way.
Yeah.
It's like if Fox News or if any news station you're watching, that's your only news, or that's your only way to the outside world, in a way, and they're telling you not to do this, to not to do that, to stay away from this neighborhood, to do that, and do this, and send your kids to that school, and this is bad over here, and it's just like that's where you start. Fear. Yeah, you pump that fear into them, and then that's just like how you control them. But now, I feel like the age of the internet, like, that's just not a thing anymore. Like, people just don't.
Yeah, they're
smarter than that.
There's a revolution of trying to be genuine on the internet. A lot of people, a lot of people are really in tune with that. I think, I know a lot of people that don't even watch any kind of televised news because they're just like,
it's a waste of fucking time.
Can't tell, like, even.
Who are they to pick and choose what they tell about?
Yeah.
What's going on in your neighborhood or the world?
Yeah.
It's always going to be told from one side.
Yeah. And I think people are just like, why do I gotta get up and listen to this every day? Why does this need to be part of my routine?
It's not a part of mine anymore. I had to stop that.
Yeah, and I think people are finally realizing there's just more.
Because all you think about
there's more.
It's like. you're just like fired up about that subject for the whole day.
Yeah.
Or it's just usually about politics, like, oh my god, this and that. And yes, like I try to get into politics as much as I can because it's important.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be change.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the shitty part. I believe we're going through a shitty time with our leadership, but in 3 years, man, like it's time for a change. Yeah. You know, sometimes you have to go backwards to be able to be propelled forwards.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that motion. That's that spinning motion. That without that spinning motion, there's no forward. You know, there's no ongoing.
Yeah.
So it's important as in a way, as a fundamental aspect of nature. It's important to be in motion.
Yeah.
And to just always
be
never settle in a certain way. Never settle in a certain aspect.
Yeah. I feel like as soon as you stop moving, man, like I feel bad sometimes when people retire. Like I watch some of my family members just, I mean, I feel bad. Like I just feel like, I don't know, you always got to stay moving forward. Like I feel like that's the key.
That's your only choice in a way.
Some people will stay moving forward and they look like, they're 100 years old and they look like they're 80. You know, like it just keeps going and going.
Yeah, it's just like why?
You gotta wake your woman up.
I gotta.
Please don't turn off on me.
No, it's for some reason I think I changed back the settings because I put the screensaver on never show up, and also I think the power settings or display settings were probably set to like 15 minutes or something. I never changed it back.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's been a crazy conversation.
Yeah, took many turns.
Yeah, it was a lot of controversial things as well. But that's important.
The key is,
good.
I don't want to upset any. I mean, these are just our thoughts, and if you don't agree with them, I mean, that's fine. Yeah. Let us know. I'm always open to a new way of seeing things. Yeah. If someone shows me a better way to see something, then let's go that way.
Yeah.
But man, that was a good conversation. Well, if you guys enjoyed hanging out with us, please keep coming back. Make sure to subscribe, drop us a review if you digged it. Subscribe to our YouTube, follow us on Twitter for all that fun stuff we do on there. And hope you guys liked our new intro. I didn't even say about the intro. That was Rob's brainchild. I love it. So, all right, guys. Well, we will see you guys later. Thank you.
See you later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.